everybody, Ramey here, and today what I want to do is I want to talk about using the Apple Watch for sports, recreation, fitness. How does it work? I've been using Apple Watches for a few years now, and I also, I'm a big fan of Garmin. I've got some of the higher end Garmin watches and lower end Garmin watches, and I compare them and test them out and see how they work. But I kind of wanted to revisit Apple and talk about how it's been faring, like how is it doing? Because, I gave some reviews a year and a half back, which were not very favorable for using Apple Watch as a serious athlete. And I want to kind of revisit that because I think that Apple's made some strides, or some of the apps that work with Apple have made some strides. And I want to kind of talk about it. So first thing, to get it out of the way, if you're a triathlete doing like an Olympic plus, half or full triathlon, Apple Watch doesn't work simply because the battery won't last. So let's get that out of the question right away. Or if you're an ultra marathoner, like running the 50 miles and stuff, no, it doesn't work because the battery life. So it's already cut out because of that. So at those high levels, does not work. Any sport that you're like over 5 hours, 4 to 6 hours plus, just not going to work because battery will not last that long. Just won't. And that's if you're using GPS and music and all the stuff, but I'm going to assume you are. So let's just say it doesn't work for that kind of event. So let's get that out of the way first. Now, for events under that time frame, I think it's actually great. I've been really impressed with it. I compare it a lot to my Garmin, and so let's talk about some of the things the Apple Watch has while you're working out. So first of all, as far as like stats on the watch itself, I've never been super impressed with what the Apple Watch shows you. It's not terrible, but I get my basic usually I get my distance, heart rate, GPS, and it'll show you things like, depending on what kind of workout you've selected, like your calories burned, stuff that's not that important to me as I'm working out. And there are some nice things that like a Garmin watch would show you that Apple necessarily doesn't. But the good thing is when I'm done with my workout and I go to analyze my workout, all the important information is there. That's what I care about most. So I've been pleasantly pretty happy over the last, I'd say 8 to 12 months using Apple's ecosystem. Well, I use some other, I'll explain that. So like when I'm running or I'm biking or I'm swimming or I'm lifting weights or I'm rowing or I'm surfing, those are kind of the big events that I do use my watch for. Also some hiking as well. Those are kind of the things that I routinely every week pretty much use my watch for. Today I used it to bike and I use it to run. I did a brick workout of both of them. Sometimes I add swimming in there and do a brick of all three in the same day. But it works really well to do that. Like when I'm running, when I run, I need my distance, time, heart rate. That's kind of what I need as an amateur for fun and fitness runner. As you get more serious and you need very specific metrics, that's when you probably don't need the Apple Watch anymore. But how does it do for most people? I think it's going to do really well in that regard. Same with biking. It doesn't connect to power meters, but usually if you have a power meter, you also have, a little device to connect on the front of your bike. You're not really using a watch. So, you wouldn't need it for that anyway. But it does connect to heart rate monitors if you're using one. As far as like the accuracy of the heart rate monitor, it's just as accurate as any of the other watches that I use. Some days it just won't work. I get the same thing from Garmin too, their highest end stuff. Even my chest monitor, some days I just can't get it on or something, like it just doesn't want to act correct. As far as GPS, same thing, works most of the time. Every once in a while you get those hiccups. Nothing that none of the other sports watches don't have as well either. Now let's talk about like so as far as like using it for all those sports, it works and it does all the stuff. But like, let's say you're starting to get a little more serious and you're like running marathons or half marathons, like 12 milers or something. You're starting to get a little serious and you want to be able to really analyze your data. Can you do that? So the answer is absolutely. There are two apps that allow you to do it. One is HealthKit and the other is RunGap. Each HealthKit's like a few dollars to have permanently, and RunGap is I think like $8 or $10 per year. And what those apps allow you to do is transfer your workouts to things like Training Peaks, to Garmin's ecosystem, to Sports Tracks, to Final Surge, have the Dropbox Fit file to actually analyze yourself, send it to Strava. So from the Apple Watch, using those apps, I can actually get all the main data that I really need. In fact, using Strava, I can get my power from my bike. It gives me the virtual Strava power, which is great for me as an amateur cyclist that does not need a power meter. It's kind of cool to have that. And I can see nice charts and graphs and all the things that I wished Apple just did, but they don't in their own personal ecosystem. But I use all these others that transfer my fit file, and it works great. If you're a Trainings Peaks user, which is probably the most popular, that and Strava, all your stuff is right there, so you can analyze all kinds of different statistics that are in the fit file when it's sent to them. So as far as using it for working out, I think it's a really good option now. I think they've come a long way. I still say Garmin is the top of the food chain as far as working out, especially like duration. It's a must. But like lower levels now, I think Apple's doing a really good job, and I'm starting to really like the product for that. Thank you.